Well, we do a little like funny things or something like that in the
Bloopers?
beginning. Yeah.
Behinds.
Or we might just use something from the actual show.
You guys didn't get that joke, and I'm really sad.
What is that? What was the joke?
My Miss Yuma County on my like highlights, my last name is Heinz, and so I made one of them behind the scene.
Oh.
If it doesn't fit, like.
All right. Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Are We Where Yet podcast. I am your host, Johnny. We don't have a sponsor today, but we'll be back next week with a sponsor. But we do have a guest that has to get to work after this. So I got to kind of be brief and get right into it. It's Gabi Heinz.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. No problem, Gabi. And I was going to say Gabriella, but that's your whole name, right?
Yes, that is. Most people call me Gabi because 95% of people can't pronounce my name right. So I just shortened it to Gabi.
Did I do it right? Gabriella?
You did. Gabriella.
What?
I've been called Gabriel a lot in my life.
That's horrible.
I know. Gabriel, Gabriella.
Why would they do that, those people?
I don't know.
No. And anyway, you're here because, and I told you I was going to bring this up. You're a two-time, or for the last 2 years, you've been a title holder in the Miss America program.
That is correct.
When I read your bio, I was like, I like that. Because you didn't say Miss Yuma County, Miss City of Yuma. You said, I'm a title holder in Miss America.
With the Miss America organization. You got to learn to be an advocate for yourself.
Exactly. So so I saw that and I'm like, oh, this girl gets it. Right. When I saw that, no joke, I was like, this girl gets it. She understands it because that's something I would do. So if it's something I would do, you obviously get it. Right. We get it because it's kind of something that I would say, because you've got to take ownership of what you've done and your accomplishments. Is it okay? Is it?
I just can't see you.
Oh,
and I'm
okay.
like singing a line. So I'm like,
okay,
it's killing me.
Do you want me to move?
You're good. You're good.
Okay. All right. You could just chill, lean back, whatever, it moves. But anyway, we were talking a little bit off air and I wanted to know, okay, so who is this girl? Is this something that, you were prepped for since you were 5 in little beauty pageants and with the makeup? Because I've seen those TV shows.
I am not a toddlers and tiaras girl.
You're not a tiara?
No.
Okay. What kind of toddler were you, Gabi?
Okay. Well, I was homeschooled. So from the age of 5 years old until 8th grade, I was always at home. I played sports sometimes on base. My dad was military, so I was a Navy brat.
Okay.
My dad was in the military for 20 years. And I loved roller skating with my friends. I played basketball. I was horrible at basketball, horrible at soccer. My mom still supported me, so she still let me do it.
Okay.
And
so let you because you wanted to do it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I always loved sports.
Cool.
And when I was 11, I finally found my niche and I did swimming and stuck with that until I graduated high school.
So you were athletic.
Define athletic.
Well, as soon as you got
I
in
was
the
not
pool,
good at sports, but I did them anyway. I was determined.
okay.
How about that?
I would say that's athletic. You did it anyway, right? So that's athletic. Maybe not like a natural phenom, like some talent,
I guess I just imagine someone athletic as someone who's good at it. Like I literally scored 1 basket the whole season and every parent came up to me after.
I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
They were all so proud of me because I finally scored.
Yeah.
And the girl literally was about to shoot and saw me there, gave me the ball and let me try to take a shot. I'm serious. This is really how it happened.
So we got to be an advocate for yourself.
Exactly.
So you were athletic.
I was athletic.
You were
You're
athletic. Right. Okay. So you were athletic and not a toddlers and tiaras girl, but what else were you like in your teenage years? Like what was your favorite classes in high school?
Well, I was always in accelerated classes.
Okay.
I did AP pretty much all of high school. And I graduated 3rd in my class. So that was something I was really proud of. I loved choir. That was probably one of my favorites. I was a singer. Grew up with my brother singing. My grandpa was a singer and they always called him Frank Sinatra.
Oh, cool.
I don't sound like Frank Sinatra, by the way.
I could kind of tell right now in the headphones, but...
And yeah, I mean, that's really my high school wrap up. I was always in AP courses, worked from the second that I could work, and I have always been pretty self-driven.
Okay, so and that's what kind of why I wanted to know, to kind of pull on that thread, because I wanted to know kind of what would lead you here. So obviously that would be the singing, the
Yes,
choir.
there is a talent portion.
There's a talent portion, so the singing, and you have a way with scholastic achievements, yeah, and so that could have been like the thing that said, you know what, I could run for this, right? I could do this,
right? Well, I don't remember if we had mentioned this or not, but I'm currently Miss Yuma County, and going in to compete for this, I looked at all of the different phases of competition. There's a talent competition, private interview, onstage question, and evening gown.
Not a basketball competition.
Not
right?
a basketball competition.
There's no. Okay, cool.
There were no hoops on stage,
No hoops,
except for earrings, unless you count those.
Okay, real quick, side thing.
Sorry.
Hoops. I heard that when women put hoop earrings on, it makes them feel powerful. Yes or no?
I don't really wear hoops.
Okay.
My
cool.
my ears always burn after I wear earrings. So I usually try to avoid them.
Okay. I just saw that and like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. I almost regret getting my ears pierced. I'm probably not the best girl to ask.
All right. Okay. So, so you saw the criteria.
Oh yeah. That's what we're talking about. So I saw what went into competition, and I was really passionate about my social impact initiative, which was sex-trafficking prevention. And I was really looking for a way to advance that in the community. And this was my medium. I looked at the Miss America organization, and I saw women that collectively work towards and for passions. And I felt like there was no reason I couldn't do it. I just needed to learn how.
Okay. And so you're Miss Yuma County now.
Correct.
But the 2 years encompasses previous, you were Miss City of Yuma.
Miss City of Yuma.
So that's when you initially decided to run?
Yes. And that was a funny story because I had not known about the competition. I saw information about it 5 weeks prior, and they just so happened to have a girl drop, I think, or something weird happened.
Oh, wow.
They needed one more person to sign up, and I last second pulled together all of my paperwork in 24 hours, submitted it to the director, and asked, could I please run? And she said, I'll make an exception. Yes, you can.
You
and
were
I
an
won.
exception.
I was an exception.
That's interesting.
I'm exceptional.
Yeah, you're see, always being an advocate, Luis. You hear this? So no, I get that. I have a friend, Kelvin Gastelum. Are you familiar with him?
I've heard of him. I don't know him.
He's in the UFC.
Right.
And when he went to go try out with the UFC, there was a competition called the Ultimate Fighter, and he was the exception because you got to be 21 to get on the show. Or certain, I think it was 21 or 18. I forget how old it was, but you had to be a certain age. And he was just right off the cutoff. He had his birthday on the show. So he was able to get on, and he ended up going to win the whole thing.
That's crazy.
He won the competition as the exception. So you get very familiar to that. You're winning as the exception.
I feel like someone should play like Paramore in the background. Isn't that a song she sings?
I don't know, but I like Paramore.
I swear it is.
I'm a fan. So 5 weeks.
5 weeks.
You're an exception.
Intensive training.
Who trained you?
Okay. This was prior to me really having had any experience in this besides just applying for jobs. And Russ Clark, who is our director's father, was our speech coach. And I worked with him regularly leading up to competition.
Okay.
For my talent, I practice that honestly like every single day at my house, preparing for the pageant night.
So what you practice? He gave you like assignments?
We had that year. We didn't have mock interviews. We had to present speeches. We had sort of on stage question style trainings that we would run through, where he would ask us random political questions or personal questions that we had to create an answer to just off the cuff. Okay. And that was honestly probably the most helpful thing to me at that point, because I had never had experience doing that.
So he didn't like help you like speech, like enunciate or things like that. He just helped you think on your feet.
I learned inflections later.
From Russ?
Yes, from Russ.
Okay.
But in those 5 weeks, it was really just learning to develop what I believed and why I believed, what made me who I am.
Okay, so that was the foundation.
Exactly.
The foundation. So he gave you a little bit of foundation. It's like, okay, once we're here, now we're going to kind of mold the rest of it and then kind of enunciate and do the things that you have to do, look them in the eye and be confident and kind of have your shoulders back, stuff like that.
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. And that's how we met. Was from Russ Clark.
You were my mock interview judge. That was, I think, my first mock interview I had ever done.
Oh, really? Oh, cool. Well, I was glad to be a part of it. I was at home. He's like, hey, you got some time? Want to come be a judge? It's like, I love judging people, Russ. You know that. So I drove over and.
Hopefully it wasn't too bad.
No, okay.
I have a funny story about
you
this,
were great. You were really good. And that's why on off air, we were talking about is like, I could see this girl on Fox News or something just because the questions that I asked, you were very poised. You took your time and you answered them thoughtful. And I was like, man, I just came up with this question like a minute ago. I'm looking on my phone trying to come up with questions because, he just told me about this an hour ago, but you got it and you got it quickly. So I was very impressed. What
was hilarious is after that first mock interview, I actually went home. And only a couple people know about this. I actually went home and I sobbed for like 2 hours.
Who made you cry?
No, I left.
Was it me?
No, I don't even remember what was asked of me. I think it was just generally a series of questions that were very political. And I gave like an easy answer that wasn't really what I believed. And I went home and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. I don't know how to speak anymore. I can't win this competition. And I was a mess. I was a ball of tears. And I texted Russ and asked him just for like this really inspirational message. And I went back the next week and pulled myself together. And I was like, all right, we are going to practice and prepare and represent who we are because that's what the judges were looking for.
Yeah, you did great both times. So I wouldn't have known the difference, and you were better the second time, but I really wouldn't have thought that Russ would make you cry like that.
Oh,
like
no.
You did.
Russ didn't make me cry.
I'm blaming Russ. It's Russ.
Oh, I remember what it was. He asked me something about
Russ!
He asked me something about law that was passed in California with like a shopping mall and the felony charges being reduced. Mm-hmm. And if that was fair for the not the shoppers, but the vendors. Uh-huh. And I was like, what? I don't even know what that means. Yeah. I had to go home and do so much research. I had no idea what that was.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So I'm glad we got it out. That was Russ. So in all fairness, though, he's the one that taught me how to do this. Because I sat on his radio show for 5 years, and he would kind of be like, what are you doing here? It's like, I just want to learn radio. He's like, okay, you could stay then. At 5 a.m, I would drive over to his radio show at 5 a.m. every day for years.
Yep. I've been on there a couple times.
Cool.
Super early in the morning.
Super early in the morning. And Russ has his way with you, and that's just the way it goes. And then you learn. Mm-hmm. And then you get better. So that helped you get better. That helped you prepare for the judges. Are the judges scary?
These locals were kind of funny because I had seen the people who were judges were very influential in the community. And I sort of saw like the man behind the curtain for once because they weren't random strangers that I had never heard of before. And in that moment, I realized like these are people who care about this program and they support us as candidates, and that's why they're here. So going into that interview, I really was able to just sit and have a conversation, have coffee with the judges, and hope for the best.
So you reframed it. You kind of reframed it. You took a different perspective on it instead of like, they're not here to judge me. They're here to help me.
Right. Well, and that's something Russ always taught us was if they didn't believe in you, they wouldn't be here in the first place anyway. And
that Russ, that's so good.
It totally changed my perspective because it's true. If they didn't support the program, they wouldn't have taken the time to research and read over our resumes and our social impact statements.
Because they're not getting paid to do this, right?
Exactly. It's all volunteer.
It's volunteer, and they're up there because they want to see people out of this community be the best that they can.
Right.
Right? To help develop you even further.
Right.
Because it's not an end, it's a means to an end, this program for you. I'm pretty sure it's just like a stepping stone.
Right. Like I said, this program was my medium to accomplish what I wanted to, what I felt like I was passionate about. I saw that there were doors opened through this organization and there were connections that were built through it. I wanted to take advantage of every single thing that I could to accomplish what had been set in my heart before anyway.
Okay. So and you're going back to and we'll touch on this, your platform. And you said it was there before you wanted to run.
Right.
And you're not lying to me.
No, I'm really not.
Okay, because and I was saying this off air again, I want you to be honest, right? There's no canned answers here. There's just you. This story's about you. My show's about you and your journey. And I feel honored that I'm getting you early on in your journey. And when you're famous in 10 years, I want you to come back on and tell me and Luis how good it is to be famous. And we'll just be here in this room again.
I'll take you guys with me. How about that?
Luis said,
I'm not booked that day. So.
he's good. You're good. No, but seriously. So this is part of your journey. So now your initiative, sex trafficking awareness.
It's called the Agape Project.
Okay.
Sex-trafficking Prevention.
Prevention. Okay. So how do you have that before you want to run? Were you a victim of something? Was it in your awareness? Is in your school? Like, how does that happen? I'm curious.
This started when I believe I was a junior in high school. So I was about 16 years old at that time. And I started researching because of a school project and stumbled across prostitution. Well, this sort of led me down a rabbit trail of wanting to understand the problem. And this was really before it became a buzzword like it is now. I think really in the last 2 years is when it developed and people started wanting to know more and seek out answers. But as I researched, my eyes were open to how horrible the reality of trafficking is.
Okay.
And I had seen in my family history before so many similar patterns that are likely for a trafficked victim to enter the world of trafficking. And I wasn't another statistic. And I felt so honored and blessed to not be that. I wanted to empower and equip other people.
To not be that.
Exactly. To know that they could overcome everything that they came from, that it's a part of their history, but it is not what they have to be leading into the future.
It doesn't have to be their future. Part of your history doesn't have to be your future. You're a junior in high school. You read. You dive a little bit deeper than the average student. And you're saying, you know what? I could do something about this.
Right. And it wasn't until 2 years later that I had actually found this organization and decided to compete in it.
Agape. So Agape, when did you find Agape though? So
Agape is a Greek word that I grew up around. I've always grown up in the church. And it was a word that we always talked about. And it is, in the Greek language, the purest form of love. It means selfless, sacrificial, unconditional love. And trafficked victims so often are presented this false love about what care and affection really looks like because their traffickers promise so much prosperity that's never actually going to see them through. And I wanted to make it my mission that I would restore real love back to real people who had been affected by this or could potentially be affected by it.
Okay, so it was Agape before the Miss?
No.
Okay.
That was in part my branding process for the state competition. I wanted to find a way to package it in a way that made sense and was memorable, because I think that's so important that if you really want to make a difference, you have to create something that impacts people every single day.
So Miss City of Yuma, your first crown, Agape was there though.
No, that was just sex trafficking prevention and awareness.
Oh, okay. So that was, and then now
I just repackaged the name.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay. And did you compete in Miss Arizona under that? Okay.
Under Miss City of Yuma with the Social Impact Initiative, Sex Trafficking Prevention and Awareness.
How did that go?
Nothing like I imagined. I will say Miss Arizona was an animal that nobody could have prepared me for until I got there. And no matter how many questions I asked, it did not give me a super clear picture of what it was. You really just have to experience it for yourself.
I've been there. but I haven't
Really?
experienced it. I went, because I've been.
I didn't know he was a title holder before.
Yeah,
I didn't know that was allowed.
No, I've been to the competition. I've seen it, but I haven't experienced it, obviously. But I've seen a lot of these things that the women have to do to get up there and compete, and the competition is pretty intense.
Right. No,
Yeah.
it definitely is. And we don't have swimsuit anymore. That's part of the new Miss America 2.0 changes.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit different. In the last 2 years since I've started with the organization, it has completely changed from what everyone's traditionally known as Miss America.
Does that affect you either way?
Oh, hugely, because I feel like under the new Miss America system, I was able to be successful. I, like I said, did not grow up around pageants. I did not grow up even being allowed to wear a bikini. And as the new changes came in from it being a pageant to becoming a scholarship competition, I felt like I was much more able to reach my goals because it became very speaking oriented. It was about your interpersonal skills and your communication skills versus how you looked in front of the judges.
Gotcha. So it changed that. So then it opened up a lane for
Definitely.
you because your Christian ethics, your morals, whatever those are for you, you weren't wearing bikinis and out there
Right.
strutting. So that would have been something that would, on stage, make you a little bit uncomfortable.
Well, and I don't necessarily have an issue with bikinis, and I can respect that was part of Miss America history. I just know that I can definitely perform much better under the new Miss America system because it does play to my strengths.
Okay. So what are some of those strengths then?
I would definitely say interview. Interview has always been my favorite part of competition because, like I said, it's your time to have coffee with the judges and you can share who you are and what your heart is.
And I heard a lot of grumbling when they took out the bikini part,
There are a lot of split opinions, yes.
Yeah. And so my thing is like, who cares? And be honest, like watch HBO or something if you want to see skin,
Yeah.
Just get out of it because I'm going to boycott. Like so what? Like let them do their thing. You do your thing and that's it, So it didn't affect me either way, but it's good to hear that it helps strengthen you.
Well, it's funny that you say about that is I remember listening to an interview with an old Miss America, and she had mentioned that in their contract, they had to sign and say they would not wear bikinis because they weren't allowed to be Miss America and wear a bikini. So it was a little bit outdated that you had to compete in a bikini, but you weren't allowed to wear it as part of your job. And I definitely respect the organization and stand by the organization for the changes that they've made. It makes a lot more sense as a title holder to not have that as part of competition when it's not part of the job anyway.
Yeah. So where does it kind of fit in? But women are beautiful. So that I could see the beauty part of it coming in, it's like the physique and stuff like that. That's definitely a part, but that's cool that it kind of plays to your strengths and it's allowed you to have that lane and take advantage. It's like, I could do this. And here's my passion, making people aware of what's going on in the world that they might not be aware of because sex trafficking, is it pretty big and is it brutal?
4.5 million people
Yikes.
are affected today. And those are just the numbers we know about.
And you're saying affected. There's multiple ways to be affected, I'm assuming.
Those are people who are directly being trafficked.
Oh my goodness.
Sex trafficking grosses $100 billion annually.
How does it make that much money? Is that
by selling women and men? Because every single time someone purchases someone, their trafficker is making money. Selling individuals on the black market is making them money. And what so many people don't realize is that the pornography industry and prostitution are so closely intertwined with sex trafficking. They're not the same thing, but you really can't have one without the other. I mean, so many trafficked victims are disguised as prostitutes, and you think that that's someone who's there out on their free will, but they're not. They're really being trafficked behind the scenes. Or someone could be a porn star, but actually came from a life of trafficking. And that's a story for so many. And nobody notices and nobody realizes that those specific industries are fueling trafficking right now.
Yes. And it's crazy because you could see the smile on somebody's face, but you can't see what's really going on
Right.
inside of them.
It hides in plain sight. It really does.
It hide, like you said, in plain sight. And so you saw this, you grew up, you said Christian. And so that kind of sparked something in you. It's like, okay, they need to know that there's this love out here that's not superficial. That's not all about sex. It's about something more.
Right. I mean, I think that we have an identity no one can take from us, and it has to come from within. It's not the price that someone sets on you. It's not you're only worth $2,000 on the black market. It's so much more because you have passions and you have talents and you're beautiful or you're, I don't know, great at singing or dancing. Those things matter and they make up who we are. And that has to be shared with individuals that are coming out of this industry or are being tricked to enter the industry.
Mm-hmm. So is that part of your campaign a little bit too? Like the ones that are getting tricked into it, maybe not sex trafficking or, but kind of like, oh, maybe I should do this to pay my way through college? Or would you tell them like, hey, come on, you could do something else? I,
this year, really developed a very comprehensive approach to tackling this issue. At the elementary age, I wrote a children's book to present the issue age appropriately for parents to have a practical resource to give their kids. And in the back of the book, there's a guided discussion. At the middle school level right now, I'm actually working on a training module, again, that is age appropriate for 11 to 13-year-olds because that is the average age of entry, which is jarring to most people, but it's the reality.
That's crazy.
And we have to talk about it if we ever actually want to do anything to stop the issue. And at the high school level, I'm currently working right now with a couple of professionals working in the education, just in education, to develop job readiness seminars as early prevention and intervention. Because I think that creating employable candidates for the workforce is the best way to do anything about the issue. It's fueled by money, and if we can give people a job or equip them to get a well-paying job, that is the first means of stopping anything.
So you're trying to start, like you said, a certain age group, make sure it's appropriate, and then move on down the line and try to fix this problem at every level, at every age group.
Right. The best prevention is early intervention. Only 1% of victims are actually rescued.
That's incredible. And so how do we get these stats though?
Well, the most that we have coming in right now are from projects like the Polaris Project that run the National Human Trafficking Hotline. They come from tip reports. Homeland Security is a huge feeder into investigating the issue, but it's so hard to research and find because it's not on the street corners like it used to be. And they are using the dark web and the black market. So it's not easily tracked for the government to keep a tab on what's happening and where it's happening and who's involved.
I think if I remember correctly, I think it was you that got the question about prostitution.
About decriminalizing prostitution?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I clapped.
Yes, the Nordic model.
Yeah, and I went and Googled it, and I'm like, yeah.
You're like, yeah, she's not lying.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm more libertarian in my views. Mm-hmm. I grew up a Christian as well. Super conservative early on, kind of like disenchanted with it, and then more libertarian now, right. Which is like I just let people do what they want to do, and consequences are consequences. Mm-hmm. But the Nordic model, I dig it. Because I think in one way prostitution should be legal, right? Mm-hmm. Now, because it's going to happen anyway, right? And if you just push it to the deepest, darkest corners, then you're just creating a recipe for that type of disaster, if that makes sense.
Totally agree.
So what's the Nordic model? If you could just explain for people real quick.
The Nordic model, I believe, is the best approach to preventing trafficking. It legalizes prostitution on behalf of the seller. aka the prostitute, but it criminalizes the purchase of prostitution on behalf of the buyer, aka the John or whoever is ordering the prostitute. So it allows the victim, whether they're being trafficked or they're there in their free will, to speak out to law enforcement without fear of punishment, but it still holds accountable the buyer that is creating this transaction.
Because fear is real. Mm-hmm. And they do have fear because they have nowhere to turn. They don't want to go to jail. They don't want to go to prison. They don't want to have to snitch on a bunch of people or whatever the police would want to get out of them. They just want help. And under our current laws, they can't get that help so easily.
Well, and think about this too. How many of them have been in the room where a politician bought them, or where a law enforcement officer bought them, or someone that was of high stature that purchased them because they had the money and they felt lonely or whatever, because they didn't realize that prostitution is often so closely tied to sex trafficking. I can't imagine what that would do for their trust.
Mm-hmm. Because they're seeing it on a different level. Like, wait a minute, this person who I thought was this isn't that. So how could I go to anybody for help? Right? Who's anybody? Right.
So I mean, I think that getting rid of the fear of punishment would do so much for at least encouraging them to speak out.
Do you have statistics on the Nordic model?
No, right now that's not legal in America. It's not implemented in America. I believe there might be someone in Europe who has it right now. I want to say it's like Sweden or something.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you had. Oh, what's up?
Are there any, like, I would say people in government, just reiterate it for people in the audience, but like, are there any people in government right now trying to push the Nordic model, or where did you get that one?
Okay. I don't know if you could pick that up on here, but he asked if there's anyone in government that is trying to push the Nordic model. Right now, I wouldn't say that there are specifically in terms of the Nordic model, but Donald Trump did just make January, as of December 31st, the National Trafficking Prevention Month, and created that proclamation. But I mean, this is a relatively new issue that we've really done anything about. 2002 is when the TVPA Act was passed, and that's the Trafficking in Victims and Persons Act. Before that, it wasn't illegal. You could traffic someone, and there was no repercussions for that ever happening.
So we're seeing something happen,
right? We are just now seeing developments in this in the last 20 years.
And more if a libertarian would get in office, they would push to legalize it on some level and kind of make those precautions and put those safety measures into place for sure.
Right.
Because that's a libertarian view, you know. It can go to extreme because it's like legalize all drugs and stuff. Mm-hmm. But we're human beings, and human beings find a way to get needs met, make money, do what they have to do. So laws don't change the human behavior. It just pushes them to a dark corner where things happen, people get taken advantage of, right? Mm-hmm. And we have no way to go in there and shed that light on it. But you're doing your best. You got this organization. Now using this as a platform, you're taking it a second time to Miss Arizona, right?
Right. I have until 25 to compete.
Oh, okay. So you just keep doing it if you want?
I would love to be Miss Arizona one day.
Okay.
And I think that would be the next best option for me to really expand my social impact initiative. It would open so many doors. I mean, having a local title has already opened so many. At least right now, I don't see any reason to not continue working with this organization. This is a very practical way to get boots on the ground, to raise some kind of awareness about it.
Okay, so you, in June, you're going to go compete for Miss Arizona, but you didn't sound too confident right now. You said like one day. You didn't say like June when I come back with the title. You're not self-advocating right now.
Oh, I would love to be Miss Arizona this year, and I'm very confident about Miss Arizona this year.
Okay.
I'm just laying out that I have 5 years to compete.
You got 5 years, but this is the year though, right?
Oh, yeah.
This is your year. Mm-hmm. You're going to come back, and then you come back on the show, and we'll talk about how that was. And so the judges, though, a little bit different in Miss Arizona, I bet.
Yes. Last year, there was a judge who was part of the Miss California organization, which is a very competitive state title. There is another person who had been performing in show and theater. I think there are actually 2 or 3 of them had been performing in show and theater, Broadway, some of them. One of them I think was a musician. They're very highly esteemed judges at the state level.
Does that play into your nerves at all?
I don't know that it plays into my nerves. I think it pushes me to work harder.
Damn, I like that answer.
Because I know that there's a higher level of expectation.
That's a great answer. Did you just make that up?
Well, technically, but it is what I feel.
No, that's great.
I didn't make it up.
No, that's great. I'm just teasing. But so getting crazy questions from those Miss Arizona judges last year?
Oh my goodness.
Because when I went, the year I went, I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they just asked that. Like, I feel bad for the girl. Like, I'm dead serious.
In my private interview, they asked me about who was running in the next presidential election.
Okay.
And at that time, there were so many people still running. No one had really dropped because we were 2 years out. And my onstage question, they asked me if I could pass any law to stop trafficking, what would I do? And I said that I would increase internet security to hold marketing websites accountable, which is true, but I would definitely pass the Nordic model. Like looking back now, I don't know why I didn't say that, but I know a lot more about handling my nerves on stage
Gotcha.
now than I did back in June last year. One girl was asked, if you had to tell a child that they had cancer, how would you tell them? Which I can't imagine answering that question. I don't know what I would say.
What a strange question.
It could be anything. It could be a personal question. They could ask you about politics. They could ask you about your social impact initiative. I've heard girls where they've asked them to tell a joke in front of them. And it's anything is free for all, but you have to go in with the mindset that any question that's in the fishbowl or written down on their paper, you've already been prepared to answer because you know exactly what you think about every single topic they could possibly talk about. You know what you feel and what you believe. It's all about you, nobody else.
It's all about you. And as long as you know yourself,
exactly.
Game on.
Exactly.
Bring it.
You have to have such a strong sense of self. That was something I really wanted to take into these locals for Miss Yuma County, was knowing that I was sure of exactly who I was and why I believed what I believed, because that's what they were looking for. They want someone that's so confident in the person that they've decided to be, not that they have fallen into.
So did that self-confidence come at an early age, or was that also developed?
I was super shy when I was little. When I was homeschooled, I was the girl that didn't want to talk to anyone. I was terrified of people. If people talked to me, I would answer yes or no and then look back at the ground because I didn't want to carry on a conversation.
Do you think that has anything to do with the fact that you were homeschooled, so you didn't have a lot of social interaction as a...
It's so hard because before I even started school, was that way. I mean, from the time that I was little, I was...
You were always shy?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that was just my personality. And I remember when I went into public school, I had a friend tell me, Gabby, you're going to be the weird kid. And that was like my challenge to be the normal kid, quote,
gotcha.
Normal. And I told myself that I was going to stretch outside of my comfort zone and I was going to learn to connect with people and be friends with people. And that's what I did. I just started striking up conversations.
And this is, again, in high school, you started striking up the conversations.
Oh, yeah. By high school, I felt like pretty much all my social anxieties had really worn away.
And then you took it to the next step, like, okay, I got that out of the way. Let me go up on stage and get judged.
Exactly. Here's the thing. Your comfort zone is only as big as you let it be. And if you stretch outside of that comfort zone, it's going to push further and further and further until you don't have one anymore, or at least until it's enormously large.
Gotcha. So you're going to continue to push. So let's get off of the Miss stuff. What are you going to do after this? So after you got to 25 or whatever.
After I become Miss Arizona.
After you become Miss Arizona.
My plan is to, right now I'm working on my bachelor's in pre-counseling.
Okay.
I want to finish my master's in counseling with an emphasis in grieving and addiction therapy for family members.
Gotcha. And is this something that comes from your faith again?
Well, when was it? A little bit over a year ago, I lost my dad to a long journey with alcoholism. And I really felt the pain and the struggle of of living with addiction and having to overcome despite adversity. And I wanted to challenge and champion other people that had grown up with a similar story to know, again, that you're not limited by what you came from. You just need to know who you are and what you're capable of.
And that's real. To lose your dad to alcohol like that. That's something.
It was 2 weeks after I got crowned Miss City of Yuma.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
And so did you grow up with him in the house drinking a lot? And
Yes. And my dad was amazing. He loved us a lot. He was always very supportive of what we did. And it really did take me until after his passing to realize that he was a person that struggled with an issue he didn't know how to get past, and that was okay.
Kind of like nobody showed him the light in a certain way. Nobody showed him the way to deal with it.
Well, what I think we don't realize is nobody wakes up saying, I want to be an addict. Nobody wakes up wanting to fight a battle with alcohol. And forever I thought, he's just choosing this over and over and over again. And there's so much more at play. There's depression. There are hormones. There are neurotransmitters that are quite literally being replaced in your body.
Yes. And that addiction calls to you. And then, and then, like you said, the depression, the self-medicating.
Right.
And this is how I'm going to deal with this. Because, okay, one more day and just one more day. And yes. And so you said after he passed away, you had to come to terms with, okay, maybe he didn't choose this. It kind of chose him as well. And it is what it is.
Right. Well, and for so long I lived with a lot of shame. And after he passed away, I decided I didn't want that to be a part of my story anymore because there was no reason for it. I loved my dad. My dad loved me. And if I had a story that I could share about overcoming with other people, I wanted everyone to hear that because there's no reason that anyone shouldn't be able to feel encouraged by my story.
So that's where the grief counseling, is that where that kind of ties in? Okay. And just so like you like working with people?
I love working with people. I'm a server right now, so I work with people on the daily.
Okay. So, but then serving people, which it is, I mean, it's a
whole
mission.
other rabbit trail.
It's a mission, but dealing with people's personal issues, that can get very weighty, and you got to kind of walk softly because you're kind of going into places where it's actual like hurt.
Right.
And pain, and you can hit those pain bodies and you can hit that hurt. Are you prepared for that?
I feel like I am. I mean, I'm learning so much in school right now, but from as long as I can remember, I've always been a friend that people reached out to just to talk about life and catch up on where we are, because I like to think that I'm very open-minded and I'm good at meeting people where they are.
Okay. And so when you say that, right, in my mind, what I think is accepting them where they are.
Right.
Right. Despite maybe something that they shouldn't do.
Right.
Right. Because it's like, so my mentor, I have a mentor. I've had a mentor since I was 15 years old. And that's one thing that he taught me is he accepted me for who I was when I was this kid off of the streets and, just rough around the edges at that point, even though he didn't accept the stuff that I was doing, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
That he saw past that. And he's still my mentor. And I got to give a shout out. I started a podcast with him called Coffee and the Word. He's a minister and an artist. And so people want to check that out, listen to that. But
shameless plug.
Yeah, plug. But no, he did that. And that's one of the biggest things. It's like he taught me too how to accept somebody where they're at and what in what they're doing, even though I don't like what they're doing.
Yeah.
Which is a difficult thing to do. It's not as easy as some people might think, because you can hold on to those little prejudices. Maybe, they're a Democrat, you're a Republican, or homosexual issues. There's like all these different myriad of things that's like, but how do you just love the person for who they are?
Exactly.
And so you think like maybe that came naturally, some of that.
Well, and there's also so much that goes into it with self-care. I think when you become a counselor, you step into psychology. I was reading this thing that was talking about self-care and how self-care is actually very ugly. And self-care is not taking a bubble bath. It's not putting on a face mask, because when you do that,
I love this answer right now. I just got to say this, because Go on. Anyway, just go.
No, but self-care is ugly because
Instagram tells me different. But
yes.
Anyway.
Well, because when you're finally at the point of just having to sit there and take a bubble bath and indulge in chocolate, you're at the end of yourself. You're not caring for yourself at that point. You're trying to recover from yourself. And if you can learn that self-care is having the hard conversations with people that you might not always want to have, that it is doing the things like going to the gym and feeling uncomfortable, or going to a speech training and not wanting to be corrected about something, that's self-care, and that develops your best self. That's what it looks like, not being exhausted and having to go down the candy aisle to find something to fuel your problem for the day.
Because what I see today is girls on Instagram, I'm going to go do me, and they're doing shots at some bar or whatever. And that's like self-care. And they would literally say that, like, I'm taking care of myself. I'm going to go do me. Mommy needs to go out. And it's just littered with that.
Yep.
And I had to do a lot of self-care, but I would like a journey. I had a big company, a family, a house, and I lost everything. I lost it all because I was doing that part of doing me.
Right.
I was doing the club scene. I was doing a bunch of other things that didn't feed my soul.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't nurture me at the deepest level, and it got me to a place where it was all gone.
Yeah.
And I remember walking from here downtown all the way to my house that I was staying with my parents after not having $1. And so I had to go down that road, and it's like, this is what it looks like. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It was tough. It was grueling, but that tough and grueling part of my life was the best part of my life.
Yeah. Well, and I've got to take it back to the Miss America organization again, because it taught me so much about what actual self-care looks like, because there are parts of the job that sometimes you do feel too tired to do, but you know that you need to do because it's going to create discipline in your life. And I mean, without it, I don't know that I would have ever realized that sometimes accomplishing your goals is not cushiony and fun and amazing. Even your dream job is going to have some challenges along the way. And if you can learn at a young age to overcome that, I mean, I think you're setting yourself up for success in the future, to know that sometimes you do have to die to yourself to see out what you want to see out.
Die to yourself. Nobody wants to hear that, though.
Yeah.
You know, because, so check this out. Just to add to that, my mentor taught me self-care is serving others. Mm-hmm. He taught me that, no, you got to die to yourself and serve them. And in that you find yourself, which sounds totally backwards, right? It doesn't make sense. Like, how do I find myself? No, you find yourself when you lose yourself in others. And so even now, like to this day, if I'm working on something and somebody calls with an issue, I'll stop and take their phone call and deal with that, because in dealing with that, I'm dealing with myself. I'm taking care of myself. I really 100% believe that. And there's also chemicals that in your body release when you take care of somebody else. When you do something good for somebody, it's like you get this reward. The serotonin starts to flow in your body. The cortisol goes down, and all those things that you're trying to get out of the chocolate and the bubble bath come because you did something good for somebody.
Right.
So.
Reiterate, but with that, I heard somewhere too that even saying thank you to somebody that helped you, that person that said thank you and means it,
Yes.
they get a better feeling than you doing the action.
A mentor of mine, piggybacking on that, a mentor of mine had told me that anxiety and gratitude cannot live in your mind
live together
at the same time. And if you rename what is in your mind, instead of saying, oh my gosh, I feel so nervous about this thing, saying, I'm so grateful that I can be here or that I can do this thing, that completely transforms how your body is processing that thought.
Back to the reframing, like you did with the judges. You reframe it and you say, this is what this is. And you have all the control to do that.
Right.
And people don't know that. It's like, oh, because even nerves is supposed to be there, right? You're supposed to get nerves. Nerves is the same thing as getting excited. Yeah. So you don't want to get rid of your nerves, because then you'll never be excited about anything. You just want your nerves to be your servant, not your master. You want your nerves to obey you and what you're trying to do and kind of get those under control. And one of the ways you do that is gratitude.
Yes.
And so like after losing everything, I get up in the morning, every morning, early before my family and before I could get the kids ready, go for a walk. And I just walk around and thank God for everything that I have.
That's awesome.
Because that is, I was just telling my sister the other day, was because that's how I deal with anxiety, by doing that. That's my dealing with anxiety. But anyway, so that's beautiful that you said that. I appreciate that. And I agree 100% with you. And so counseling, and what else?
I would love to pair counseling with more trafficking prevention work. If I could marry those two worlds, that would be amazing. I would love to work in the nonprofit field and partner with some nonprofits that are already existing, maybe as a counselor for their organization. We don't really have anything in Yuma right now, but hoping that in the future.
But you can after you're Miss Arizona, you got all this clout, you come back, you bring it, you start your business.
Yeah.
And we were talking a little bit off air as well. Maybe entertainment?
Maybe. I would love to do it. I don't know that I have a clear vision of how to make it happen, but I would love to do that. I'd love to do something like this. Just be on a talk show and go back and forth.
Okay, so you would like to do this, like a podcast.
Oh,
you having fun right now?
I am.
There's nothing stopping you from doing it. Seriously. I could tell you how to do all of this. You buy one of these machiny things here and a couple of these mics. This is what Michael Jackson recorded Thriller on, this mic. Anyway, you get some of this and you just do it. That's all I did.
Just do it.
You just
Where's
seriously.
Shia LaBeouf when you need him?
Yeah, you just get it together. And it said, because one thing I want to do from this podcast, I got to tell, I want people to discover themselves on this episode. And I want people to say, oh, and kind of put things together and realize like, this is what I want to do. And so it's like just an idea of mine. And I've been doing it this is like episode 28. This is my 28th episode. So you could do it.
I would need to borrow a film person.
We got Luis over here.
I'm telling you, we could just make our own podcast.
Would you like to like co-host, come over here and help me book stuff?
Let's do it.
we could totally do it. Because that's one of the things I did see when I was the mock judge was you were a natural. You had a presence with your voice and your inflections, and that's probably thanks to Russ. God, that guy. He's one of my mentors too, so I kid, but
me too.
So I could definitely see that. So, and I said, give you some ideas, like, you could do like Luis is doing over here with his Instagram and his little videos. That it was like, oh man, this is a great video. I sat there and watched. It's like, I get to work with this guy and how good he is, and that's pretty cool, right? And so there's so many.
He was grateful, so he wasn't anxious.
Yeah, I think maybe before he started rolling, a little nervous, but he did it. He did this video, and so there's different avenues that you could take.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be the typical avenue of, okay, I got to be a newscaster and read boring news for a while, which you said you didn't want to do.
Yeah, I don't really have a passion for doing news. I love being up to date on what's happening in the world. I just don't necessarily want to report on it.
I like to get updated just like quick, like, okay, that's it. Because then the rest of the news just wants to depress me and make me sick. And
I love the Fox News and CNN like blurbs on their Instagram posts that has like a 2-sentence summary of what happened.
Yeah, and like I'm good after that. Like I don't want to dive any deeper, because if you do,
I have to for interview.
Okay, yeah, but right now you got to be up in current events. But like as you get older, you get sucked in there. Like my grandpa, he just sits there and watches Fox News all day. Like
that's my dad too,
and yells at the screen.
Yep.
And it's like, dude, you're 80. Like, like chill, man. And, so anyway, so a little
Bill
bit.
O'Reilly every night.
Oh yeah. So
I remember that.
Yeah, then that one will get you excited. That's
it was always on the TV.
And Bill O'Reilly he does it on purpose because they want to provoke and get some kind of a reaction out of you because that's how they create that addiction. Mm-hmm. That addiction. So anyway, okay, so maybe some entertainment, but definitely counseling, definitely working with people. You like people, people business. You're somebody that people can go to, and once in your mind, you get this notoriety of Miss Arizona, that's going to open up a few more doors for you.
I definitely hope so. I mean, there are so many connections that come through that. It's an incredible opportunity that not a lot of people get, mostly because I don't think they realize that that's accessible to them. And it just takes the right team of people behind you. It opens up a year of service where you can work with your social impact initiative and give back to your community. I love that. I love being able to build my interpersonal skills through it. I mean, Miss Arizona goes and competes on the Miss America stage. How many people can say that they've done that? There's just so many things that come with this organization I love and would be more than grateful to take up the opportunity to be Miss Arizona.
Well, I'm rooting for you.
Thank you.
You got a fan here. I'm rooting for you. I think it's a great platform. I think it's a great intent behind the platform, that it was something birthed in you. It wasn't something like, okay, I got to compete for this pageant. Let me make something up, which does happen. I'm not saying anything against it because it's part of it, but this was something birthed in you way before. And so I respect that. That's a different level.
Thank you.
And I hope you get those opportunities. And I think even if you don't, as long as you continue to follow this thread of what you want to do, the opportunities will come. And maybe they come in different ways and disguises. And then because that's me losing everything, right? And not having the trajectory that I thought I wanted. And then finding myself like, oh, maybe I didn't want that. Because that's all glitz and glam. And that's like, I would be destroyed inside because I never took care of my soul. Right. So anyway, I'm going to be rooting for you, and I want you to come back after this June, right? After this one, and say, "Hey,
once
I got the crown
and sash."
And then we'll do a podcast together, and then I could be on a podcast with Miss Arizona. That'd be cool.
Yes, that would be amazing.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. We got to wrap it up. You got to get to work. Shout out to Texas Roadhouse.
Yes, I love my job. I really do.
You wore the shirt today, and. You want to thank anybody? Anything you want to say at the end here?
I want to thank Pacesetter Home Centers for being our title sponsor, because my education would not be possible without them.
Oh, it's a scholarship.
Yes, scholarship is a huge part of this, and it's seriously not about the crown and sash. There's so much more to it, and I'm so thankful to sponsors like Pacesetter that make our year possible.
Thank you, Pacesetters, and I see you everywhere with all the sponsors.
I know, everywhere. Laser Gals, Cindy, Love, Gabby Marshall. There's so many. Yeah,
so thank you for all the sponsors that help make these things happen, to give somebody like Gabby a sponsorship so she can fulfill her dreams. We appreciate you. And thank you guys for listening. If you like the show, you could support on Patreon. We got the Patreon account. You can find that link at the bottom. And also, if you like the show, leave us a rating, a review on iTunes, and I think you can on Spotify. But anyway, thank you guys one more time. I'm out.